Thanks, everyone. It's good to be back and to see everyone in this particular venue. Let's enjoy a few minutes of sitting together. If you would, let's voice the four practice principles as we begin today. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. It's such a joy to be back with you. I've been, engaged with actually some of you on the screen during this time when I haven't been at Inquiry in retreats, especially here in Hawaii, which was lovely. It seems like so much happens, in between times when we meet, but that's how life is. Um, I wanted to uh, I say I want to focus on something, but that's just a way of saying what's living in me right now um, that I'd like to bring into the conversation with you is life and death, kind of the great matter for our practice. It's with me every day, certainly more closely these days, with losses that we've had either within the Sangha or family members, people who are struggling with various challenges and illnesses. And we just chanted each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, which is such a brilliant way of speaking about what practice invites us to do, to turn toward the present moment experience rather than being ensnared and enchanted by our virtual world of our thoughts and feelings and what we call the self-centered dream. I think a lot of us, for example, sometimes I've looked for teachings to bring into the present moment, into my life, hoping they would somehow then straighten things out, rather than realizing that what I'm receiving are the teachings. And these management practices are helpful. We get a calmer body, we get a clearer mind, they're actually helpful, but they're management practices that are not liberating, not in exactly the same way. What if, and I'm not suggesting we change our chant, but we chant each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. What if it was life and death in each moment, continually teaching? Life and death, life and death in each moment, continually teaching. It's not just the moment that teaches. We're all in the present moment, whether we like it or not, or whether we think we are or not, whether we're paying attention or not. There's no other place to be. But the invitation to wake up and realize what our practice is asking of us and the difference that that deep asking makes, and that the teaching is only going to reveal itself if we pay attention um, to the fullness of what's always unfolding, rather than just the side of coping or striving or trying to fix something. And then that line's followed by being just this moment, compassion's way. The way of compassion is to fully meet life and death. The way of compassion is to fully meet life and death as each full moment, not just in each moment. Life and death is the unfolding of every moment. And to remain awake to the great matter, the great mystery, is essentially the foundation of our practice. That's why the verse of the Han bring us to practice in the morning, let's say in a temple, or in the afternoon. Great is the matter of birth and death. Starts out, all is impermanent, quickly passing. Awake, awake, don't waste this precious life. And at every memorial service, I invoke that. The call of the Han brings us to the essence of what our practice is. And in a memorial service, it brings us to the service. A person's death has called us. The great matter. There's a group that I meet with once a month, and we laughingly call ourselves the old Zen teachers. It's people from a group of us from the Lay Zen Teachers Association. It was started by Peter Levitt. Some of you know Peter's work, a wonderful translator of Dogen, works a lot with Kaz Tanahashi and writes his own poetry. And Peter is a wonderful teacher and a great guy. And he said, let's get together, some of us that are a little bit older, closer to actually retiring from things, and talk about what it means to be a Zen teacher, um, living so close to life and death. And one of my other buddies there, Bob Rosenbaum, who's from California, we were talking the other day because Bob is um, he likes to study Taoist things, which are so blended, with Zen. And anyway, he offered me this statement, which comes from Zhuangzi, who is one of Lao Tzu's contemporaries. Listen to this two lines. That which kills life does not die. That which gives life to life does not live. That which kills life does not die. That which gives life to life does not live. Like, what? So that which kills life doesn't die, and that which gives life is not alive. So what the heck is he referencing in this old kind of language? And I think it's a very kind of beautiful and enigmatic and poetic way of pointing at the great matter of the heart of practice. This thing on the Han, the great mystery. That which what is that? That which gives, what is that? And this mystery can't be, fixed or tied down. And everything we think we know or imagine that we understand about the mystery, we don't really know. We can't sort it out once and for all. That's why it's called the mystery. But of course, not knowing or not understanding this vast thusness or whatever doesn't suggest that we should like abandon clear thinking or discernment. It doesn't say there's anything wrong at all with thinking or with wisdom and knowledge. They're wonderful and useful. And we don't abandon that any more than we abandon like our life simply because we know it's impermanent, it's going to end. It doesn't make any sense. But our practice teaches us to live in the constant presence of the mystery, which is life and death, not life and death, life and death, so that we can release ourselves to it and live it, and seeing all of the beauty and all of the difficulty. And hopefully, through practice, this natural upwelling of awe, which maybe has a little edge of terror, awe, that comes with appreciating that we're actually alive, which is pretty remarkable. Kierkegaard famously said that this is like sewing with an unknotted thread. Those of you that have sewn rakusu or other sewing, you go, if you don't have a knot at the end of the thread, you lose it. So we attempt to like stitch up our lives, sewing along, piecing it together, patching it together, but we look and it's unraveling behind us as we go. And it might hold together for a little bit, and everything might seem well and good, for our immediate purposes, which is nice. But we never really tie up things in a tidy way. It ultimately loosens and slips away and kind of falls apart at the end. But knowing this isn't the road to despair. Like, oh, well, any more than it's the stitching is the road to certainty. Those are the two ditches. This is the path to freedom. And it doesn't have to be complicated. My good friend Peter here on Molokai had begun meditating again. I guess I had a bad influence on him. He started meditating again, and he was talking to me about it when he and my friend DeWitt were meeting this Saturday. And he said, I realized something really profound. It's so simple. It's very basic. The way I understood it, and Peter has a degree in like religious studies. It's like he's very sophisticated, mature man. He said, as I was sitting the other day, I realized, and he's a very successful man. He's done a lot. I realized that on every out breath, there's no striving. A simple thing, but it's so profound. With the out breath, there's no striving. Just the releasing ourselves to life and death. Like the quote you've heard me say from Suzuki Roshi, where he said, you take a breath and you release the breath and you rest in that little pause at the end. And he says, if you're alive, you'll breathe in. If you're not, no problem. Life and death. And as often happens through a couple of Chris's in our Sangha, I was sent a piece from a wonderful poet, Andrea Gibson. She's the poet laureate of Colorado, and she's also quite successful and enjoys spoken word poetry, slam poetry. If you want to look her up on Substack, her Substack little magazine is called Things That Don't Suck. So, it's a great title. And just a backstory so you understand the context of what I'm going to read from her. She's a beautiful writer. She's 48 or 49, I believe, right now. And probably 5 years ago, a little more, she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. A lot like Caroline, about the same age, a different disease, but about the same difficulty. So she uses this, of course, a lot with her writing, and as because she's a poet, she's taking us through this. This is what I'm going to read is just a couple of short paragraphs from her post on the 20th, so just 5 days ago. And she says, a few days ago, an oncology appointment to discuss my recent scan results, I was told there is cancer progression in several parts of my body. I've received hard news like this several times over the past 3 years, but because my treatment options are dwindling, it was a heavier day than most. This is it, I thought, when the appointment was over. This is the day my spirit finally breaks. This is the moment I can't mosaic it back together. Can't make a poem of the pain. This is where I sleep so late it's nighttime, when I finally muster the nerve to crack open my eyes, where I once and for all give up. And so you can imagine this sentiment as she talks more, but then later she writes, as my oncologist went over the results of the scan, I ran my palms over those parts of my body that he was speaking about and noticed my hands were shaking. So frightened they were to touch the truth. I felt unbearably vulnerable, fragile in a way that was convincing my mind I was on the verge of emotional collapse. A short while later, I had this very codependent worry. If my spirit breaks, someone else's might too. My partner's, maybe. My mother's, maybe. Or maybe one of yours reading this right now. Of course, I didn't know if that would definitely happen, but I was overwhelmed with terror that if my spirit shattered, that shattering might domino. And so it's interesting, isn't it? As she writes through, you hear the turn from life and death to the bodhisattva vow. Oh, we're all in this together. My breaking is everyone's breaking. What is this call on me? This is this is what I am suggesting, that line, each moment life as it is, life and death as the teacher, what is asking of us. And that's what she's writing about. The story she's telling is not an unusual story. Many of you have even lived it. But what does it ask of us? So I'm going to take a break just for a second and do my job as a Zen teacher, and here to go to the Blue Cliff record, case 82. I'll go on. Um, it's very brief. A monk asked his teacher, Daru, the body of form is destroyed. What is the enduring Dharma body? He's saying the body of form is destroyed. What's the enduring Dharma body? And his teacher said, the autumn foliage is like brocade. The waters of the valley well up like indigo. That's one of those strange Zen responses. Like, what the heck? So the monk, the monk knows that everything's impermanent, but still he or she, probably he back then, I guess, is still like hoping that there's going to be an exception to the rule. The body of form is our physical body and the form of the entire universe, really. The body of form will fall apart, just like Andrea is talking about. Everything's gonna pass away. But isn't there something that endures? The monk is asking, like the Dharma body, like opposed to this ordinary one. Isn't there something transcendent, or maybe something beyond the mundane particulars of my strange little life, And the teacher does answer him, and instead of pointing to something that you might expect, something, esoteric or transcendental or heavenly that the monk wants, like some big Dharma teaching, the same thing we want to hear, some consolation. He replies in this enigmatic way by pointing to the changing colors of the autumn leaves and what's going on in the flowing stream. He's reminding the student to come back to earth, to remain here in this body, on this earth with the rest of us. This is all there is. Or maybe better, I think what I would say is this is all we have to work with. Even if there is something else behind the veil, I don't know, the mystery, tucked into the mystery and folded into the mystery somehow, this is what we have. This is where we live. And the teacher's pointing to that. And one of the great, I think, gifts of contemporary practice, at least in the West, is that it is um, much more embodied. We don't get caught too much in negative views about the body um, because the way we meet each other in our animal fleshy bodies is in relationship is where Dharma unfolds, Buddha to Buddha. Unlike the old days when there was an emphasis on asceticism or um, seeing the body, the meditations on decay and defilement, they're ways of helping us understand the impermanence. Um, but as we do that, I don't think we miss the inevitable anxiety and, of course, mortality, the more contemporary understandings of trauma and its impact on the body. These things we know about now, but we have to practice with the body, flesh and blood are inseparable from the beauty and the wonder and the terror and the unpredictability of the natural world. And our teachings ask us to turn toward and inhabit this fleshy immediacy of our personal, physical, and relational bodies. And this is something we're asked to cherish rather than push aside so we can reach into the spiritual, dissolve into this sort of universal solvent of like universal oneness or emptiness. No, we learn that to truly embrace embodiment and the great mystery is to not separate life and death, but to settle into it, not separate it, to settle into it. Returning is the way we return to the great mystery and the great matter. And the very thing that we complain about, like the monk was asking about, all the changing and the aging and the anxiety and the pain, the decomposition, all the stuff that the Zen teacher group and I have talk about, all that stuff, are the same thing that brings us the blooming of the flowers in the spring and the flowing waters from a valley pond. It's the same thing, this life and death, this unending contingent interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, of everything, the relentless impermanence of it all, appearing as two faces, life and death, but one doesn't exist without the other. It's just one thing. And all that we love and hold dear in this world are this same thing that causes the world to continually rise and pass away. There's not another way. There's not another life. There's not another world. So how do we embrace it? If I go back to Andrea talking about her cancer and at that moment where she felt like she was going to fall apart, having such bad news, she writes in, that was the exact moment I put in my big boy pants and did the only thing I know to do to keep my spirit from breaking. And this is one of the things that we don't emphasize enough, I think, in Zen practice. She said, I grieved and grieved and I grieved and grieved some more. I sobbed so hard I thought it might flood my home. When I found anger beneath my tears, I walked out to the garage and punched every bit of dust off the boxing bag I hadn't touched in years. When I heard fear in my anger, I stood still and trembled so hard it almost looked like dancing. And through it all, I repeated a line I'd written long before my cancer diagnosis. Let your heart break so your spirit doesn't. Let your heart break so your spirit doesn't. Letting my heart break felt like standing in a hurricane without lifting a single finger to protect myself from the debris flying at my skull. But afterwards, I texted a friend. The sun has finally broken through the clouds in my chest. The light had returned. We go into it, not away from it. Life and death, the only teacher, teaching by going into it. And later, there was a line that I was really stunned by. She wrote, I don't know the meaning of life. I typed later into the notes of my phone, she says, I don't know the meaning of life, but I know the meaning of my life is to love my life, no matter how it shows up. Each moment, life as it is. In that koan that I mentioned, there's some commentary, which I'm not going to go into so much, but it's interesting in the translation. It talks about physical form, um, and they use a funny word, the great clump or the great clod in some of the translations. That's such a weird thing, the great clump or the great clod. It says, burdens me with physical form, labors me with life, eases me with age, rests me with death. Oh, thus what makes my life something good is what makes my death something good. Considering my good life is what makes me consider my death good. Weaving birth and death, birth and death. This is the kind of thing it is, he says. There's nothing it doesn't send off, nothing it doesn't welcome, nothing it doesn't destroy, nothing it doesn't complete. He's talking about the great mystery. And then what I thought was amazing, he said, its name is tumultuous tranquility, peace in strife, tranquil turmoil. Is using these opposites, seeming opposites, but it's just completeness. And he says it reaches its completion, comes to take its shape only through its turmoil. And don't we, in our life? Both sides of the same coin, a bit of light in the dark, a bit of dark in the light when you see the Taoist symbol, peace and turmoil, life and death. So I'll end with some more words from Andrea, just because I've been inspired by them this week. And this is a poem that she wrote back in April, before this latest recurrence. Um, and I'm going to read a little bit of a longish segment. It's a long poem, but this is just a piece of it. The title of it is The Life-Giving Benefits of Befriending Our Mortality. I think the reason I want to read it is because this needs to be human and personal. And this is one of the ways life and death looks when we practice with life and death in each moment, being the only teacher, knowing compassion's way is the very moment that we're living. So I'm going to pick it up here in mid poem. She said, but I did not meet this life until I met its brevity, did not meet my voice until I knew every word could be my last. I did not know what prayer was until I started praying for what I already have. Praying for what I already have is the reason I've spent 3 years now saying my heart is an heirloom. I didn't inherit until I was told I could die soon. And no, I'm not at death's door, but I'm in the neighborhood. Just like you, strolling through the cul-de-sacs, waving at eternity's porch light, knowing the afterlife has a really big welcome mat, and maybe we will be welcome soon or when we're much older. But this is what I know for certain. Warming up to the idea of a promised tomorrow is the surest way to give today the cold shoulder. When I speak of sweetness of this life, I don't mean my butterflies never cry. I don't mean my heartbeat never aches. I mean, I'm learning the infinite difference between saying I fear death and saying death isn't fair if it finds me soon. A short life doesn't always equate to a life cut short. A long life doesn't always equal a full one. My life is now overflowing with how many beautiful things can be seen in a single second. How it's possible to blow up a second like a balloon and fit infinity inside of it until I'm bursting with laughter when anyone calls me an old soul because I can't help but feel like this is my first time here, marveling at the steam rising from a cup of coffee, or two wild geese stopping traffic as they mosey across the road, or my own breath and another birthday candle to celebrate the holiday of having a body. At the end of our lives, we don't want to say we celebrated the holiday of having bodies. Don't we want to know we lived like we never forgot we were born astonished or never intended to grow out of our awe? Awe is the most profound medicine in the world. I've never felt awe and shame at the same time, awe and loneliness at the same time, awe and judgment at the same time. And nothing wakes us to awe more than life's brevity, which is to say, forming an intimate relationship with our mortality could not only save us, it could save our world. If you don't believe me, tell me the last time you saw anything bite with its jaw dropped. I know the culture we live in. I know mortality isn't small talk, but I wish it was, because it's the seed of connection, the seed of true healing, and the seed of love. So that's probably enough. I had a lot on my mind and my heart this week, and I found some people to help me with it, with some beautiful words and some relationships, which echoed it back to me. What's on your mind and your heart?
Thank you, Flint. This was a wonderful thing to bring us. It's on my heart and in my life fairly thoroughly.
You've
Um,
lived this.
um, I had the opportunity in my mid 40s to live in a rainforest. And in a rainforest, you can smell life and death together at the same time in a way that was quite profound for me. Somehow the smell did something different than the ideas and the
Yeah,
I understood it and so on. But oh my
quite
gosh,
primitive.
completely in me then. Um, and having this practice, which I say hello and thank you to Darcy for introducing me here to Appamada and to all of our ancestors, each person who's carried it on for a long time, and for you and Peg and our many teachers that are the Sangha.
Mhm.
And because of that, I'm now dealing with the part that when my mother died, I was clear I wanted to work with something, which she died gracefully. She intended to come to die gracefully, and she did. I had been taking care of my parents for 5 years in their home at that point, And when I thought about it, I went, wow, she did a grand job of that in so many ways. And yet she showed me the importance of our gracefulness once we need assistance of any sort. That when we need that, is to be able to do that with grace as well.
Mhm.
And so when Sheila Fling was in assisted living and it's just like I've been invited so many ways toward all of that, that even while I mean, and my body, I've I've been very body aware for quite a while. I did qigong and a whole lot of things that also helped me come to this practice. And the thing is that thereby I've been given the opportunity of experiencing what is going on in my body in a way that I I think if I could avoid it, it would be less painful in the moment. And oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And I also have real gratitude that we have the opportunity amongst each other to be talking about it. And but that our body, if we listen, will help us understand and truly accept impermanence. And it can do that sufficiently that even if you still have that little thought, no, my intent is to live, that right now is the moment to do it.
Yeah,
And
like these are important things to you that you want to make sure people hear.
I, I do. And I thank you for having this setting. And I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it, I reckon. Not the same thing over and over, because all different ways of looking at it come. But oh my goodness, it's just a wonderful, awful,
Mhm.
magnificent thing. And so start young and keep at it. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Becky. Bridget,
And
there
I
you
didn't realize that I saw Sheila Fling's hand. Well, part of me feels like I could quote Andrea. Feel like I'm on the verge of emotional collapse in a way because the my second son, who I'm just been given, only permission to say hello to, and I see him at family events. His 36th birthday was on Sunday, and I was wanting to call him, but had already sent him a birthday card. And I've grieved Carolyn's death and went to the little gathering um, that Lori had at her house, and of course her other ceremony will be coming up. But I think all of this is impacting my body now because I've been having some health issues arise over these last few weeks. I actually went out to Tassajara after you sent that the thing that they were having classes there again. And I went to the program on women in Zen and enjoyed that, but spent most of my time sleeping. And I didn't realize how really
go.
physically and emotionally exhausted I am. And so I can imagine you're going to say, look on this with kindness and be still. But I want any thoughts or ideas on how I can pull myself out of um, this sense of deep loss, as if my son is dead, because I don't get to see him, and it just hits me in waves. And that's why Andrea's poetry made me want to step forward and ask you, because you can see I'm feeling pretty fragile.
Yeah, you can't get yourself out of it. It's what Becky said. You have to let other people help you. I don't think it's possible to pull yourself up by your emotional bootstraps. But if you can fall into somebody else's arms and cry or rage or whatever, and because it needs to be witnessed, it needs to be held by others like you're doing now. There isn't some magic thing that's going to suddenly make you feel better. If you feel like you've lost your son, you're going to feel a lot of grief. And that may
Right,
be the case. That may be the life you have to live.
right. Well, I'm very inspired by the ratings you read of Andrea, and you're just reminding me. And I know there are people on these screens that I have
Yeah,
friendships with and can connect with, but I tend to isolate when I feel this way. So,
right. And I know that about you. So that's why I'm saying there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to say, this is how you do it, Bridget. No, you do it
okay.
by turning towards others.
All right. Well, thank you. I know
Glad
there.
you turned toward us now.
Thank you. And thanks for being here.
Yes. There you go. You got that button.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Um, and thank you, Bridget, your son, and the mention of Carolyn. And yes, sleep. You mentioned sleep, and I truly believe that can be a real healer when it's the right time. And it helped me last night. Yesterday was a really hard day, and then the sleep just resurrected me somehow.
Mhm.
And then I want to also thank Becky for mentioning the rainforest and the smell, the aroma of death and life. I know
Mhm.
that smell a little bit, and I'm gonna let it be a an atmosphere, I guess, for my body, for my meditation. Now, more, I'm gonna take some special time for the meditation on that rainforest aroma of life and death.
Good.
Just breathing in,
Yeah.
breathing in. So thank you, Becky, and thank you, Flint, always, and Andrea for what she gave us. Yes.
Thank you, Sheila. Hey, Cass.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
Uh, the quote, let your heart break so your spirit doesn't, just hit me like a lightning bolt. And when we met, I was letting my spirit break.
Mhm.
And I'm
That's a
not,
that's a cliff you've walked up to several times.
yeah, I'd have. um, but I'm not sure if I've ever truly let my heart break all the way for those things.
Yeah. I think that's something we keep learning over time. It breaks as much as we can tolerate, as much as we know, and we think, wow, that was something. And then we find, oh, there's more. And it's not the bad news. It's not like something horrible. There's a depth and yeah, there's difficulty. There's also beauty in it. It's so tenderizing. And it makes so much more space for love. And that's what I've seen you do. You've made so much more space to love. And for more love to come to you.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Um, in January, I'm planning on moving to my mom's.
Yeah, I thought that was coming.
And
It's an end of an era being down here.
Yeah. Um, but I can't imagine not offering her me at the end of her life.
Yes. And I bow to that.
And I am fully grieving my life here.
Yeah.
I'm cherishing all the moments, all the little ordinary things are so precious. And my relationship with my young friend Max, my surrogate son,
Mhm.
uh, I don't want to tell him. I don't want to tell him that I'm going to move.
Not yet. You don't want to tell him.
Yeah.
Not time yet. But you want
But
to give,
go ahead.
even though it may not be time yet, you want to give him time.
Oh, yeah. At least 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, to the,
Yesterday, yesterday, my sister and I closed on sale of my mom's house. Kathy took everything that was left. And so there's no longer any family home. And when we have no presence in Central Texas for the first time in almost
ever.
100.
Yeah. 100 years. When I closed my eyes, I could see the after image of you in the rocket suit. Um,
I hope I always have an after image in your body.
well, there's no way
At
that you,
you.
yeah. Um, but when I closed my eyes, I was asking myself, like, what is my Zen question in this? What is, you know, what is the opportunity that I have right now? And I'm,
But
what's,
you think it's already happened?
which what?
You think it's already happened?
My Zen question? Probably. Uh,
Opportunity.
yeah.
Did, does your spirit feel more or less intact now?
Oh, more.
Is your heart breaking with ease and fullness here?
Yes.
And what has that opened up for us? Lots of love.
Yeah. And
Which,
and the
which
intimacy of that.
right,
The
and the grief that comes with it.
yeah.
You're living the question. That's the point of practice. You're
Do that. Yeah.
not just telling a story or reflecting on it. You're bringing it here. That's one of your gifts.
Thank you. Thank you. That that opens a lot in me.
Mhm. I had an image. You and I are image makers a lot of time. When I said you've walked up to that cliff a lot of time, the spirit breaking thing, and the image suddenly I had is you on a cliff, maybe out in the hill country someplace or something, and I'm back away from it a little bit, and you turn around, and I'm always holding my hand out and saying, instead of looking at that space, let's look at this space between us. Come back over and over.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that resonates at all.
Well, what I imagined was oddly also a cliff, but the one in your neighborhood that's up the road
Oh
where
yeah,
the
I
big
have to
drop off
overlook.
is. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, and there's a picture that I think Jonathan Kingston took of me standing there with a walking stick. Uh, but I was feeling your hand on my back.
Yeah, yeah. Yep, that's it.
That's it.
And it's the help, it's the connection that I was talking to Bridget about. And
Yeah.
I think it's time for us to wrap up for the day. Is that good?
Yeah.
And rather than our completion chant, um, I just wanted to say again, um, one of the quotes that I had since our time to stop, where she wrote, "I don't know the meaning of life, but I know the meaning of my life is to love my life, no matter how it shows up." So Ed, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Flint. Just want to remind everybody that Apamata's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. So please know your support makes a huge difference. And there is a link for contributions on the web, which is apamata.org/contribute. And if you'd like to continue to meet, share, or just simply connect after this inquiry, just please stay online. Pop yourself into gallery view, and we'll be together for another 28 minutes. And we will see you there. Thank you.